Hello, everybody, and welcome back to IDAGIO Live. My name is Michele Gamba, and I'm joined again by the legendary Sir Antonio Pappano. Ciao, Tony.
Ciao, Michele.
Thank you very much for joining us. You've taken us around Rome. You've taken us around the fountains of Rome. You've taken us around the pines of Rome. We've seen also a wonderful documentary with you and your orchestra about actually the magic of the Rome atmosphere. And today we should go party together, right?
That's right. The Feste Romane, the Roman festivals. First of all, let me say I want to thank IDAGIO for this little series that they've dedicated to us. It's just been absolutely terrific. And thank you, Michele, for being the front man. Thank you. Respighi has created, again, 4 movements, 4 orchestral pictures that, in this case, continue something that he started in the pines of Rome, which is looking at historical times, setting each piece in a different historical time. For instance, in the pines, it started modern in the Villa Borghese, went to the catacombs going back centuries, then goes to the Gianicolo, which is a romantic, also quite modern, and then going back to the Via Appia and the Roman times and the centurions and the legions of the Roman army. Here, he does a little bit the same thing, but mixing pagan elements and Christian elements. We start with the first movement, Circenses, or circus games, and we're put in directly into the Circus Maximus. And it's his words are, "A threatening sky hangs over the Massimo Circus, but it is the people's holiday, Ave Nero. The iron doors are unlocked, the strains of a religious song and the howling of wild beasts float on the air. The crowd rises in agitation, unperturbed. The song of the martyrs develops, conquers, and then is lost in the tumult." So as you can hear, a very bloodthirsty Roman audience in the Circus Maximus, awaiting the mutilation of these early Christian martyrs. The music is a step further in its grandiosity, in its majesty, and its cinematographic suggestiveness. This is brutal music, earthier than the music you've heard up until now, rougher, and even more gestural. There's very little development in the sense of taking a theme and developing it in the traditional sense. There are the musical gestures, leitmotifs even, these musical visiting cards that are repeated over and over again, but heightened in their intensity. Remember, last time I spoke of Puccini and his tendency to use ostinato to create obsessive listening, obsessive feeling to the listener. This happens to an incredible degree here. And I spoke of gestures. We start with the first gesture, which is something quite violent. It's soon followed by a fanfare. And when we hear the gesture again, and the fanfare. So this, you hear in this very high note, the scream. If I introduce Andrea Oliva, our wonderful first flutist, he will play you.
Everybody. Hello, maestro.
Hello. Hello. If you play from number 1, Andrea, we hear how this scream, almost this, the tension created by the expectation of the public.
Yeah.
Yes, fantastic. And you hear it goes higher and higher and higher. There's a sport about this music, actually. It's a challenge to the listener as well as to the performers. Now you're going to have, I said, used the word ostinato before, this repetitive, these riffs that, and you hear that also harmonically. This figure will repeat and repeat, again using the fanfares. And then we get the unlocking of the iron doors, letting the beasts and the martyrs through. Very rough indeed. You hear Stravinsky, you hear The Rite of Spring. This is 1928, the piece being premiered in New York City, conducted by Arturo Toscanini in 1929. But The Rite of Spring was 1913, so it had already, shall we say, poisoned the musical world in a way. We hear the Song of the Martyrs, which we will introduce Carlo Maria Parazzoli, our concertmaster, now. And he will play you this poignant theme of the martyrs.
Ciao, Tommy. Hello.
Ciao, Carlo. Then you hear the authority. Grazie. Grazie. In between that, you hear the beasts. And this is incredible how he achieves this. You hear the they're almost breathing fire. And against this very, very smooth legato theme and plaintive, almost plain chant theme of the martyrs. Now this will grow into an incredible conflict between these two themes that becomes extremely pictorial and violent. Violence is the main event here. And until you hear and see the audience stand up and against this chord, listen. You hear. Again, another Stravinsky device. You know, thumbs up or thumbs down. Well, you guessed what's going to happen. And it ends with a citation of the authority. When we move to the second movement, which is the Jubileo. Now, the Jubileo is describing, as Respighi put it, the pilgrims trail along the highway praying. So we've moved to a pagan atmosphere to a Christian atmosphere, yeah? Finally appears from the summit of Monte Mario to ardent eyes and gasping souls, the holy city, Rome, Rome. A hymn of praise bursts forth. The churches ring out their reply. Now, this is extraordinary because it is very much like the last movement of the Pines, but instead of being the Roman armies coming towards Rome, it is the pilgrims. So it is much less threatening and much more benign. It starts with a Mahlerian, sad and tired little musical riff. Carlo, would you play this? The beginning, the second movement. That's great. Grazie. Grazie. Now, against that, we will have and you hear the steps. Echoes of the previous movement. But against, so Carlo, would you play that again, please? Puoi risonare? Yes, wonderful, great, and this creates the atmosphere, and we for a hymn that the pilgrims will sing, and it's taken from a German Easter hymn called Christ ist erstanden, Christ is risen, and it goes something like this. This is the flute, excuse me, the clarinet and the bassoon, which, and this, against this, you'll hear time, 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 and the movement will grow, getting nearer and nearer, and then the flute takes that little theme we just heard and creates almost what I would say a prayer, a hushed prayer under the breath. So it murmurs. Andrea, would you play that, please? Well, that's the tune. That's the tune. And before that, the prayer, the
Carlo team.
And you'll have parallel and contrary motion in the strings as an answer. So you have this very, very ancient music feel to this as the voices come closer and closer. So to achieve that effect, he brings in more and more instruments, even creating with the flutes and the violins, the sounds of choirs in the air. Again, you see these parallel harmonies. That was very, very much in vogue at the time. Again, I cite Debussy and other composers. As we get closer and closer and closer to Rome, we start to hear the bells, and we add the organ here, and you hear this tune. You can almost hear the bells inherently in that. But if you play now, Andrea, the Allegro Festoso,
yeah,
festively alive, yeah. That's terrific. Grazie. It's amazing. So you hear, it's almost like minimalistic music that is in fashion these days, but it's already here. And the sound of bells and repetition, intensity building through repetition, creating an obsessional vision of the center of Rome, the capital of Christianity. All of a sudden, all this C major, all these bells are interrupted by a B flat, played by the two pianos. Now, the orchestration is enormous. I haven't talked much about that, but it's everything somehow. Organ, two pianos, bells everywhere, creating just a cacophony, almost a cliche of what would be all the bells in Rome ringing. But this call is a call to prayer. You hear the piano, the echo of the bells again. It's a wonderful, wonderful effect, creating a moment of reflection before we move to movement 3, which is l'Ottobrata, the festival of October, celebrating the harvest, and the hunting festival also. This is really a typically Roman festival. Again, we come to something that would originally come from pagan times, and it's again playing with fanfares and with riffs. We have the horns playing this, and we have the flute playing this, the beginning of the Ottobrata. That's very good. Thank you. So these ding, 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 again, quite bell-like, and again, creating a rhythmic groove, if you like, for the celebrations. You have the fanfares that I spoke about. The trumpets, and that's the general mood of it, really ebullient. And there's a lot of fun and games in this celebration. And you'll hear this unusual and playful and that together with, if I introduce now Edoardo Giacchino, our percussion soloist, he's going to play something called the Sonaliera. And this is for us sleigh bells. And this will, yes, would you play those for us? Exactly. So you get all these combinations of very, very high instruments, creating something that is less massive. Because the piece tends to be, to an even greater degree than the other pieces, tends to be quite massive. Now, along with those instruments, you have the violin playing an improvisation on top of that. Carlo, would you play number 18? I love that lick. Again, always against always against that background, and you have the percussion then develops into something else. The bells will play. Eduardo, can you play the barabadim, barabadim, barabadim? There you hear the tune. That's wonderful, wonderful. On the toy glockenspiel, fantastic. We're introduced, out of that comes this amazing tune. And it comes out. staying. It comes out of nowhere and is so unexpected. I will never forget hearing my violin section, first and seconds, playing that the first time we rehearsed it when we were playing. It was something so Italian, I can't tell you. It was just absolutely spectacular. And you'll hear that on the recording. This winds down. There are incredible solos from the horn, from the clarinet, the horn in particular. I told you about the hunting festival that this also is, and we hear very much. But then we bring in another interesting instrument, and that is the mandolin. And the mandolin, again, a very Mediterranean instrument, because we're going to hear not only celebrations, we're going to hear some love serenades. And this is the first of them. He lays down a groove. Which then becomes a little waltz. And then you... You hear this little dainty little tune, which is absolutely lovely. This becomes something else now and becomes more and more sensual. We have the horn, back and forth from major to minor, again very Mahlerian, and we have the solo violin now playing this gorgeous. And you react, Andrea, you answer. And then the next phrase. Wonderful, and this is beautiful. Then the violin and the cello play a magnificent duet together. And this movement fades and fades and fades away. This is the first time where we achieve the type of musical perfume that the other pieces, Fontane and Pines, managed to do so naturally. Here, there's this incredible respite, and we hear again the sounds of the sleigh bells fading, fading, fading into the distance. And we have this gorgeous, gorgeous harmony. Hanging in the air, that which I played before. Now hangs in the air. And we move to the last movement, La Befana. Now, La Befana is the day before Epiphany. So we're in January now. And this is a wild, wild party. All over the place, but in particular in Rome. And here it's a feast of the dance, basically. And it starts again with a very, very pagan theme played by the high clarinet, the piccolo clarinet. There's some almost Middle Eastern flavors there. And the flute answers. And we have the percussion, the xylophone, first of all. Listen to this. Giacchino.
It's okay.
Eduardo.
Yes.
There's a wonderful, yes, mechanical feel there. Okay. And now we move to the tavolette. Listen to this. Now, these are kitchen utensils. So this is homemade, ladies and gentlemen. But look at this. Listen to these two pitches. So it's, again, a celebration now. Wow. So did you want to play? Oh, I knew what you were waiting to play. You were waiting to play the fast bit on the xylophone. If you want to, please play it for us. Vuoi suonare quella parte più veloce?
Yes, yes.
Go. Yeah, sounds like Gershwin. That sounds like Porgy and Bess. You'll have incredible syncopation. And now we're back to the earthy, to the rough, to the human, populist music that he was trying to create here for us. We get fanfares galore. Here's one from the trumpet. I'll play that again. Again, simple music. These are simple themes that for any listener, one is able to hear the popular nature of this music. What Respighi has done, however, is to put layers upon layer upon layer upon layer and put them all together, creating, yes, a mass sound that, although each single element is popular and very, very easy for the ear to grab, it becomes a form of modern music. And in that way, it's just absolutely sensational from a craftsmanship point of view. Full of tunes. We have a saltarello, which is a dance. Saltare means to jump. So we hear the clarinets jump. We hear a barrel organ player, because look what he says. The night before Epiphany in the Piazza Navona, a characteristic rhythm of trumpets dominates the frantic clamor above the swelling noise float. From time to time, rustic motives, saltarello cadenzas, strains of a barrel organ. Well, you get the idea. You must hear this waltz, though, before we go, because it's quite something. You have the organ playing. Above that, you hear the flute playing this. Andrea.
Yeah.
Incredible. And we have a drunk trombone player. Yes, these are effects. This is not great music, but it's full of effect. Of course, a saltarello, the dance must get faster. So we hear the violin. Carlo.
Yeah.
Il saltarello. Now those elements, the saltarello, the drunken song, and the barrel organ will build into this tremendous waltz, and we'll have a tune that comes out of nowhere. I would say more Spanish than Italian there, but it builds into something so enormous and so celebratory and so joyous that I can't wait for you to hear it. It's just something outrageous and over the top, but so full of love for the Roman history, the Roman traditions, the Roman rituals. Please enjoy. Michele, I think that's it from me today.
Yes, but if you don't mind, I've got a couple of questions for you. And since we got, your the colleagues from Santa Cecilia, that would be great also to ask them. I mean, clearly, you must have a very special relationship with these pieces, right? I mean, you're the most prestigious symphony orchestra in Italy and around the world. I mean, you must have a special feeling for these. Do you have anything to tell us in particular about it? I'm sure there are plenty of episodes you must feel personally as something that belongs to your personal stories. I mean, to all of you, right?
I think, as we said before, the first two pieces were written for the orchestra, and of course we're very proud of it. But this one has is another of the pieces that has Rome in the title, and is about the people, the Roman people. So of course there's an incredibly close relationship. But let me tell you, in particular, this piece, the Roman festivals, is extremely virtuosic. Therefore, you need only the finest orchestra to even to contemplate going anywhere near these pieces. So our love might be one thing, but you need the caliber of the players we had today, Mr. Oliva, Mr. Parazzoli, and Mr. Giacchino, people like that, to be able to realize this music. Otherwise, it's impossible. It's untouchable.
That's the best. These are the best pieces to actually represent the Italian quality, right? I mean, they are kind of, all of you are ambassadors of, Italian taste and quality, I would say.
Well, we're ambassadors for, I think, Italian taste and quality, but also you must remember that Respighi was trying to be an ambassador for Italian symphonic music, which you've got, when you remember that Italy is opera, this was an effort, along with some of his colleagues, to try and turn the tide, to try and drag people's attention to the ability of the Italian composers to write symphonic music in their own way, with their own traditions, with their own folklore in the back of everything, like Stravinsky does in The Rite of Spring. It's Russian, pagan, Lithuanian folk music that inspires that piece. Bartok, full of Hungarian folk music. Well, here is the Italian folk music being used and being taken and being, yes, sexed up. It's made into an orchestral fantasy.
Well, I think we are all very grateful to you and all the colleagues from Santa Cecilia. So thank you, and all the colleagues from Santa Cecilia. Thank you very much indeed for taking us around Rome in such times. Really, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maestro.
Grazie.
Ciao, Maestro. Ciao.
Grazie.
Thank you, Michele.
Ciao.
Grazie, Michele.
Ciao.